It's 1st of August 25, and it's Friday, and Owen Jones done an interview with Jeremy Corbyn. Says 30th of July when he uploaded it or published it. Um, but it's the first time I've been interested in what Jeremy's got to say, because he was actually saying things this time, whereas usually he's like Miss World talking about she wants peace, world peace and stuff like that. It's not even worth listening to him. But in this interview, he said stuff. I mean, he made comments about Keir Starmer. He told us that the new parties get 600,000 plus 600,000 have registered for the newsletter or whatever. As far as I know, I don't know, or an interest in signing up. I don't know. It's not actually started yet. But I was amazed. Well, not amazed, but well, I was actually that he wasn't boring. And very vague. He was actually saying things in this interview. So I'm just going to make comment on it. And I say this as someone who votes reform as a protest vote, but I'm really happy to see the left now have Jeremy Corbyn's party because, well, I suppose it's Jeremy Corbyn and others. If something happens to Jeremy or Jeremy drifts away from the party, who have they got left as MPs? So that's interesting to see, but yeah, it's just at the moment in the polls, I've seen him be like 8%. One poll had him at 15%, his party. The same as Labour. Labour would be 15% too. So it's like what reform's doing to the Tories, really. It could be. We hope. Well, I hope. And I hope that's because I'm against the electoral system, the party hamper electoral system. First past the post, it's just rotten, the rotten borough system. So anything that's going to split that right down the middle, I'm really happy with. So in this case, it's Labour are going to get split mostly, I think. So, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn in 2017, he got one of the highest Labour votes ever. Well, he got more than Tony Blair in 2005, not the other two times, I think. And then in 2019, he got more votes than Keir Starmer just got. So he got like 10 million votes. And Keir Starmer called that, I think, Labour's worst moment, or whatever, I think. I can't remember what he said. Whereas he won it with less votes, and he get 2/3 of the MPs, with a third of the voters on one of the, I think, the lowest turnout ever, 59%. Keir's not asking for democracy to be radicalised because of that. The way to do that would be introduce direct democracy, like Switzerland, or at least PR. It was interesting to hear that Jeremy Corbyn says he's looking at PR. His way, I think, is like the Scottish one, where you'll still have a constituent MP. I don't really agree with that, but also a regional vote where you get to vote for party thingies and people get voted around the region on the vote share or whatever, which is a bit better than, well, a lot better than first past the post. But no, what I want to vote in referendums and stuff all the time. Anyway, here's my notes on it. So I'm delighted that this could split the left really and split the electoral system where it makes it impossible to keep the first past the post system, because Keir Starmer's just listed his quote radical policy law changes he's going to make on the electoral system, and he's doing that by letting 16 and 17-year-olds vote, which isn't very radical at all. I mean, he's not changing the first past the post system, so that means he's not radical in the slightest, really. He's not introducing e-voting, which is ridiculous. You could ask, why are banks online? Why aren't they being like the government and keeping everything where you don't get to vote online and stuff? Because we should be able to vote online up to the last second. We should be able to vote and change our mind up to the last second. And because what's happening now is most people are doing the sensible thing and they're using a postal vote. And that means that, and apparently most people who get a postal vote put their vote in within days. So that means, and I think that's about 3 weeks before the actual general election, So that means these politicians are going to these big question debate things, and people have already voted. About about a third of people have already voted, maybe half people have voted. So these big debates are absolutely pointless because people have voted already. Whereas if you had e-voting, they could change their mind anywhere through it. So there's nothing. So it was interesting that Jeremy Corbyn said he wanted PR. I think like Scotland, I don't know how they do it in Wales. I think Wales are about to go total PR. I'm not sure for their Senate. But well done to Wales if they're about to do that. And here's the other points I made from it. I can't remember a lot of them because it's the first time I've listened to him, like I say, where it hasn't been like listening to Miss World, wanting world peace. So it's the first interesting interview I've had because I feel he's just you'd be better off with a dummy, really, most of the time. I don't know why there's such a sensation about him. You know, like 2015 was a shock to me. I know it was a shock to everyone. But Ed Miliband wouldn't have changed the Labour Party rules. He wouldn't have made it democratic for the members if he had known what was going to happen. Because the hard left always put a candidate up for the Labour Party leader elections and they would take turns. So it'd be John McDonnell one time, then the next time it would be Diane Abbott, and this time it was Jeremy Corbyn's thing. So that's how he came up. It wasn't even that he wanted to stand really well. He probably did, but it was his turn amongst his hard left friends, and it just became a total sensation. I've no idea why, because to me, he's like the least sensible of the two brothers in a way. So, but anyway, 2015, they tried to get rid of him in 2016. He won again in a leadership thing. I think is that how it happened, or was it 2017? They were all meant to vote Andy Burnham when they didn't. 2017, he went in and he got one of the highest votes ever. But Theresa May got an even higher vote, and I think, I think Tony Blair's beat him at least once. 97. I don't know about the second time for Tony Blair. I'll need to look at that again. Well, I asked it to do all from World War Two, but maybe is this all the Labour leaders? Oh, it's not getting Neil Kinnock in there, but I don't think this is right. Well, no, it's right in the order. Tony Blair got the highest with 13.5 million in 97. Well, anyway, it's not in order because Clement Halley get more. But there's Jeremy Corbyn there. I'll need to do that again. Well, I've had to have a few tries at this, but here we can see there's Tony Blair at second, 13.5 million in 97. And there's 1, 2, 3. There's Corbyn in fifth of this is Labour vote counts, so this is what Labour got at all the general elections since World War Two. So Corbyn was at 12.8 million in 2017, and he's higher than a lot of the winners. I think, let's see, 64 they won, I think. 74 did they win? They won the second one in 74, October 74, 11.4, I think. And there's down at nearly fifth bottom is Keir Starmer with his landslide victory at 9.7 million. And there's Ed Miliband, third bottom at 9.3 million in 2015. Gordon Brown's second bottom in 2010, 8.6 million. Michael Foot at the bottom, 8.4 million. And that's when the Social Democrat Party got like 28% of the vote. There's Neil Kinnock down there, 10 million. And there's Jeremy Corbyn, 10.2 million in 2019. So he beat Neil Kinnock in 87. He beat Keir Starmer in 2019. When mightn't be that big defeat. He beat Tony Blair. Even look, there's Tony Blair way down there, even though they won that time in a landslide, 9.5 million. So he beat Ed Miliband, Gordon Brown, and Michael Foot easily in 2019. But with the other one, he was one of the biggest Labour votes ever. So yeah, that's to get that into context. That is so how disastrous, quote, Corbyn was with the electorate. And he said that the party's already got 600,000, and that was back 2 days ago. I mean, I might be late. And he said, and counting, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's maybe 700,000 now. And that, he said that's bigger than Labour's biggest ever membership, which was when he was the leader. And it's way higher. Well, I think it's the biggest ever, he said. But I mean, they're not party members yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if a big chunk of them do. Like I say, it seems to be some sort of sensation with the left, which I don't understand. I do understand his general thing. If he's in support of basic income, things like that. But a lot of stuff, I don't know. Anyway. And he said, like I say, PR maybe like Scotland, which is a step in the right direction. It's more radical, far more radical than Keir Starmer, what he's suggesting. Keir Starmer, he wants to give 16, 17-year-olds the vote, but he doesn't want to change the first past the post. And that's not law yet. It's still to go through debates, bills. It might take another year, maybe even 2 years. But it was meant to be a big liberating good news thing, but it's not really liberating at all, democratic at all. I mean, it's letting 16 and 17-year-olds vote in the antiquated rotten borough system, when it's all or nothing in your local constituency. Most people's vote doesn't matter. Everyone's vote's got to matter. That's why I believe in proportional representation. Yeah, and he was also saying people are not tribal anymore. Well, they're not tribal in terms of class. I think a new type of tribal might, well, almost very likely will happen. But not like the old way where it was class. So that is right. That is correct. We had the Northern Wall. For some reason, the Northern Wall went back to Labour. I don't know why. Apart from Lee Anderson, so a Reform Party there. But I think they're all going to go Reform again. So, especially with these the hotels that they're protesting about. These people that Keir calls them bust in, but I think he's got the wrong far when he's saying bust in. He definitely has the wrong thing. To me, they look like locals. The other thing, whereas the left were busting, really. They were coming by train station. Police were giving them an escort out back to the station, and I think most of them are government funded in some way, whether it's the trade union workers or public sector, or even they have charities where they get funding from the state. We don't know. Nobody tells us. Nobody asks or whatever. Anyway, so. And Jeremy Corbyn was saying the centre-right has moved to the right, probably on one issue mostly, and the left has followed. So he thinks there's a big chunk in the middle there where he can thing me. I'm not sure, he didn't call himself far left or what I remember, but I think he's wrong actually. So, but what he will do is he'll get the far left vote. We don't know how many of them there are, like 10% in the nation, probably more, a bit more than that. If you can get some voters to go that way as well. Well, like Jeremy Corbyn here, he got one of the biggest votes ever in 2017. So, yeah, there's definitely. I'm still not understanding it myself, really, but and there is like biggest majority. Yeah, I'm talking about Keir Starmer. He has got one of the biggest majorities ever as MPs because we've got a rotten borough system. And then he actually said a bit about Keir Starmer, which was interesting because I've never heard him talk about that before. You'd think he'd be talking about him all the time. Certainly if it was Trump talking about Keir in that situation, he'd be talking about him all the time. But I don't think he's said anything. I think this is his style. He's not meant to say anything bad, but that means that you don't really say anything at all. But yeah, he was saying that outside of he took Keir, because Keir was his Brexit minister or something, was he? But a lot say that that's the reason that Labour voters voted for Boris Johnson in 2019, because of the way Labour handled the Brexit situation with their second referendum and all that, which I think was Keir's idea, right? I'll ask. Yeah, I'm just looking, it says here at the bottom, Sir Keir Starmer, who was the Shadow Secretary of State for exiting the European Union at the time, was a key figure in shaping and defending the policy. He was a prominent voice in the party advocating for a second referendum. So who was in charge with the policy? The policy was the official position of the Labour Party, and therefore ultimate. It wasn't really, well, it was, but not really, because neutrality. Jeremy Corbyn, as a party leader, stated that he would remain neutral in any such referendum in an attempt to appeal to both Remain and Leave voters. Yeah, in 1975 we had a vote about the EU. I think then we joined it, but then we had a vote to see if we would remain in it. I'm not sure. Was that? I was under Harold Wilson then, wasn't it? I think. But so at the time, Jeremy Corbyn was a young political activist and a local councillor. His stance was clear. He was against continued membership. Here are the key points regarding Corbyn's views on joining the EEC in '74 and the subsequent '75 referendum. Euroscepticism from the left. Corbyn's opposition to the EEC was rooted in a left-wing socialist perspective. He and other members of the Labour left, like Tony Benn, viewed the European Union really as a capitalist club that would undermine socialist policies and the sovereignty of the British Parliament. Early political stance. Even at the start of his political career, Corbyn was a critic of the European project. His no vote in '75 was consistent with his long-held beliefs, and he continued to be a vocal critic of the EU for decades, opposing treaties like Maastricht and Lisbon. Consistency. This early Euroscepticism provides a crucial concept for his later more ambivalent stance during the 2016 Brexit referendum. While he formally campaigned for Remain in 2016 in line with Labour Party policy, many observers noted that his campaigning was half-hearted and that his personal views had not fundamentally changed from his position in '75. So that's a bit ironic, isn't it? Because he took the Nigel Farage view back then, possibly all the time, but then Keir Starmer came up with the second referendum thing, and I think that's what sunk him in 2019. I asked Gemini how much was to blame in the 2019 defeat. The Brexit policy. Not really answered it. I wanted to see, was it the main cause? Well, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, they done a report and they concluded that Labour's Brexit policy was a major factor. Remember, Keir Starmer was really the architect of that and saw it through, but often second only to the unpopularity of its leader, Jeremy Corbyn. So that's what Tony Blair Institute is saying, so you can't be too sure about that. YouGov polling data from Time found that while leadership was the biggest reason for defection, Brexit was a close second, with 1 in 5, 19% of defecting voters citing it as their main reason. And it's saying that for Remain voters, Labour's position was not a clear stop Brexit stance, which led many to vote for the Liberal Democrats or Green Party instead. And for Leave voters, the promise of a second referendum was seen as an attempt to frustrate the democratic will of the 2016 vote. This was particularly damaging in traditional Labour heartlands. So this is the industrial heartlands in the old industrial, because the industry's gone. Labour heartlands in the Midlands and north of England, known as the Red Wall, where there was a strong Leave vote. These were the seats that switched to the Tories in large numbers. And then I tried to see how much it was. Well, they lost the Red Wall seats. The Tory strategy of getting Brexit done resonated with Leave voters in former Labour strongholds. The House of Commons Library's analysis shows that of the 60 seats Labour lost in the election, 52 were constituencies that had voted to Leave in 2016, so that's quite a lot, isn't it? And voter flight. A key review of the defeat found that Labour lost 1.7 million Leave voters and 1 million Remain voters. While this represented a higher proportion of Leave voters, it shows that the policy was alienating on both sides of the debate. Perception of indecisiveness. Polls showed that a significant number were put off because they didn't have a fixed position or whatever. So I'm just going to ask you one more question. I'm just asking it, well, why did the Labour members vote Keir, It was 2020, was it? Oh yeah, it was because it was in November, wasn't it? That. So, in the immediate aftermath of the party's worst general election defeat since 1935, but that's in terms of seats. Because like I've shown you, because we've got a rotten borough system, like I've shown you, he done really well actually with voters in terms of voters. Here are the key reasons why Labour members chose Keir Starmer. Electability and a desire to win. Starmer was seen as a professional, statesman-like figure. Yeah, I don't really understand. A unity candidate, apparently. He's not really unifying to me, is he? I mean, he kicked Jeremy Corbyn out, like, what was it, 6 months later or something? Strategic messaging and 10 pledges. While campaigning, Starmer adopted a platform that incorporated many of the popular policies from Corbyn's 2017 and 2019 manifestos. He released 10 pledges that promised to defend public services, fight for social justice and support common ownership of key industries like rail, mail and water. This allowed him to appeal to members who still believed in the Corbynite agenda while also offering a new face. It was a tactical move that reassured many on the left that the party would not completely abandon its recent direction, which it did. The alternative candidates, Rebecca Long-Bailey, she was seen as a continuity Corbyn candidate. I don't think she would have been actually, but Lisa Nandy was seen as a more moderate regionalist candidate. Well, not anymore really. I don't think anybody supports her now. Yeah, Labour members were faced with a choice between a continuation of a popular but electorally disastrous project and a candidate who promised to retain the Labour's left-wing principles while having the best chance of winning an election. I'll ask another question. In summary, many of Starmer's 10 pledges have been either discarded or reframed as the party has sought to move to the political centre and present itself as a more fiscally cautious and mainstream alternative to the Tories. This shift has been a key source of tension between the Labour leadership and its left-wing members, who feel that the promises made to win their votes in 2020 leadership election have been broken. Yeah, because here's the ones he's supposed to have kept or developed in some form. Strengthen workers' rights. He says he's followed through with that with a promise to repeal the Tories government anti-strike laws and introduce a new deal for working people that would grant day one employment rights and climate justice. Pledged to put a Green New Deal at the heart of everything. However, critics point out that the funding for this initiative is far less than what would have been required to deliver on the original Green New Deal vision. So that's the two they're saying he has sort of done. Here's a breakdown of the pledges that have been largely abandoned or significantly watered down. Common ownership. So he was going to own rail, mail, energy and water. The broader pledge to nationalise energy and water has been dropped. Defend migrants' rights. This included full voting rights for EU nationals and defending free movement. The Labour government now is to not return to free movement with the EU, and it has not committed to full voting rights for all EU nationals. Abolish universal credit. The Labour government has not committed to abolishing universal credit and is instead focused on reforms. Well, it's worse, really, isn't it? Whatever you think of it that way. Abolition of tuition fees. This has been abandoned, with the party now proposing a different approach to student finance. Increase income tax for the top 5%. This has been replaced by a broader commitment to not raise income tax on national insurance for working people, while also not explicitly ruling out a rise for the highest earners. Yeah, and the other things that Corbyn was saying, he was saying that Keir's not empathetic to the ordinary voter that you meet in the street. I mean, I don't know about that, but in general, he's a strange guy, like I've said before. He's the first Prime Minister I've disliked. I find him devious, hypocritical. He's not good to. He even does the dirty on his friends, really, if you want to call it that. I mean, he made a speech in May which was shocking. It was the strongest speech on the issue since 1969, but then a month later he said he regretted it. He said he didn't blame the speechwriters, he blamed himself for it and he was going through a bit of stress and that, but I don't think the speechwriters will feel that way because they were asked, come up with a speech that I want you make in this or whatever, you know, so, and the way he got rid of, what's her name, that lawyer who's a nuisance, I don't blame her for getting rid of her, but Emma, what's her name, Emily Thornburn, yeah, she was always loyal to him, and then on the day when he picked his cabinet, she had been the shadow justice thing or something. She was the only one that didn't get in, and I think he kept his nuisances closer or whatever, or loudmouths closer or whatever. I don't know what, but it was really. And then the way he didn't let two Labour, one Labour MP and one Labour candidate, he didn't let them stand for the election on the day of election. The election was called, he told them you're not standing, so they didn't even give them a chance to think me. Tony Blair says that being a Prime Minister you can be really, what's the word for it? Not vicious, but that thing, I can't remember the word now, but I think Tony Blair was probably even shocked actually, to be honest, really, because Tony Blair kept Jeremy Corbyn and all that in the party, you know. So, yeah, and he was also saying that if Tony, he knew he was going to get kept in the party anyway. Nick Brown, as a chief whip, came up and told him, you are still in the party after the 1997 election. I don't know what he was talking about, but the point was he didn't feel that Tony was going to kick him out. And then when Keir Starmer kicked him out, that's the first time that's happened to a Labour leader ever, I think. So, ruthless, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, yeah, it's really worth watching that thing, I think. Yeah, like I say, normally it's never worth watching Jeremy Corbyn in my opinion, but in this I did actually learn some stuff, you know. So yeah, if you've got time, well, I don't know, maybe you can always speed it up, you know. I usually watch it at 1.25 speed or something. Alright, bye bye.